So today I'm going to talk to you about 8 powerhouse tips, study tips. My name is Aurelia McNeil from thelanguageprofessor.com. So here is a quote that I like to read you. It says, attention span begins to decay significantly after 20 minutes. That's from the University of Utah. So what does that mean for you as a person learning? Well, that you need to change your activities. So here's my first tip. For you to change your activities every 20 minutes. So what I mean by that is, let's say you're studying a little bit of grammar. After about 20 minutes, switch over maybe and learn some vocabulary. Then maybe 20 minutes after that, work on some listening comprehension. The brain still learns, but it decreases after the 20 minutes. In other words, you could say the brain gets a little bored after about 20 minutes. So you just need to change up your activity, and then this will help it to learn even better. Okay, let's go on to our second point here. Before we do that, I want you to stop and think about some 1-minute activities that you can do after 20 minutes of studying. So another thing that you can do is, if you still want to study, let's say math, or you still want to continue with reading or vocabulary, just take about a 1-minute break between every 20-minute sessions. So study the grammar for 20 minutes, take a 1-minute break, and then you can come back to it. And this way we kind of trick the brain a little bit and giving it a little fresh start, and it's ready to optimize learning. So what can you do? You take a drink, get some fresh air, stretch. What other activities can you think of? And feel free to pause the video and think about some things that you like to do. Okay. Do you lack motivation to study? Well, this university says motivation is the driver of guidance, control, and persistence in human behavior. So you need motivation to get you to study. So what do we do about that? Reward yourself. You see, I got some cupcakes down here. So after you have studied for some time, give yourself a little treat. So that way you would increase your motivation. For example, maybe you studied for 2 hours. You studied 20 minutes, you took a break, you studied for another 20 minutes, you took a break, and you kept doing that for about 2 hours. Well, what can you give yourself to say, hey, I did a good job? So think about that. What are some ways that you can reward yourself after a study period? Is it getting some cookies, a couple of cookies? Maybe some ice cream? Maybe listening to a song? Stop the video and think about, what do you like? What are some things that you can do to motivate yourself, to reward yourself after each study period? Okay, here's our third powerhouse study tip. Sleep on it. Yes, sleep on it. Well, why? Well, it says here, we've learned that sleep before learning helps prepare your brain for initial formation of memories. So get some good rest. We've heard that time and again, but this refreshes our brain so that we can take in more information. Secondly, and then sleep after learning is essential to help save and cement that new information into the architecture of the brain, meaning that you're less likely to forget. Interesting. And there are other studies that show that we can sleep within the first 4 hours of learning some new information. We're most likely to remember it. And that's what I would do. So combined with my rewarding, I would oftentimes study and then just take a little nap. Let the brain process that information. Okay, now this information shows after learning, then REM sleep within the first 4 hours would be necessary to maintain the memory. Now, what's interesting is that I would automatically do this before I read this study. This is what helped me to graduate with honors, with being on the dean's list, and I also was school salutatorian. So try to sleep on it within the first 4 hours of you learning new information. Now, this doesn't mean that you only need 4 hours. No, we're not saying that. You still need an average of 8 hours to sleep each night. But think of it like saving the information that you learn. You want to do that as soon as possible and let the brain process it. So now I just want you to think about these questions. When do you usually go to bed? When do you usually wake up? How many hours of sleep do you get on average? If it's less than 7 or 8 hours, what can you do to increase the amount of time that you allow your body and brain to rest? So pause the video and take a few minutes to reflect on these questions. All right, here's our fourth tip, is to gamify memorization. Now, just about every subject you can think of has information that needs to be memorized. Math has tables and symbols. Chemistry has the periodic table. Learning a language has vocabulary and grammar rules. Well, memorizing information doesn't have to be hard or drudgery or drill and skill. Yes, we do need to get it into our brain, but we can turn it into some type of game so that it's fun for us. One of my favorites is Quizlet. So maybe you've heard of that, but you can use Quizlet to still have fun and memorize information. And this is especially good for vocabulary. So now I want you to think about, what are your guesses? Why are games included in these tips? Well, games can help us in many different ways. Games help with motivation and they reduce stress. So it relaxes us. However, there are certain types of games that help us learn. One is academic learning games. Okay, so we're not necessarily talking about your video games. We are actually talking about academic learning games. Games that teach you information that you can use and that help you with whatever subject you're studying. Another type of game is called memory games. They help with learning because they help you to train your memory. The more you try to remember, the better your brain gets at thinking about something. So this is what you want to do, is to add memory games in your learning. Lastly, we have reward games. Again, these help with motivation. They don't necessarily have to be academic, but this is what you would use after you study. So let's say you did study for 2 hours. Then you want to play just a nice fun game for 15-20 minutes. Now you're using games to reward yourself and to increase your motivation. Now I'd like for you to pause the video and think about what are some examples of each. What are some academic learning games that you can think of? What are some memory games that you can play? And what are some reward games, or it could be also reward activities that you can use? So pause the video and think about that. Okay, our 5th tip is to know that the brain makes connections when you learn something new. And I have a little video right here. I don't think it's going to play. No, it's not. But what happens is you have these cells here, and these dendrites and synapses start to grow, and they make connections with other cells. So when you initially learn something, that connection is fairly weak. But the more you go over it, the stronger it gets. Like this, okay? It gets stronger and stronger and stronger the more we go over it. That's why you're more likely to forget something that you just learned, whereas something that you have done for many times or that you've gone over many times, you're less likely to forget it because that connection is very strong. So what do you do about it? Well, you want to make sure that you go over information a lot, many times. Okay, our 6th point is to tie the old with the new. So when you learn something new, think about, what does this information remind me of? How can I connect it with something that I already know? And that will help you to remember it because you're connecting it with something that's already there embedded in your brain. And you can do this maybe like what you read. What does it remind you of that happened in your personal life? What does it remind you of that happened in maybe on the news or something you read? A book, yes, like a book that you read, or maybe a friend or a family member. What does that remind you of? And how can you make the connection to tie the old with the new? All right, let's continue. Okay, another tip, and I use this a lot, is to record yourself. So if you have some information that you're trying to learn, you can read out loud to yourself and record it, or you can summarize the information in your own words, which is even better, and record yourself. As you go around the room or go about your daily life and do things, you can turn on the recording and listen. So you're actually teaching yourself as you listen, and it's not taking up any extra time because you're just listening while you're doing something else, and you'll be surprised at how much information you remember and how much your brain takes in. So try that as another additional tip for studying and learning information. All right, let's continue. An 8th tip is for you to know your learning style. Now, I know that they teach this a lot in school, but I don't think we emphasize it enough how important that is. Are you an auditory learner, meaning that you take in information mainly by listening? Are you a visual learner where you need to see it? And that helps you to grasp the information. Are you a kinesthetic or tactile learner? Well, you need to be involved, or your body needs to be moving, and that helps you to remember the information. Now, that doesn't mean that if, for instance, I'm a audio learner, that doesn't mean that I can't take in information visually, or that I can't take in information hands-on, but it means that being a audio learner is my primary way of taking in information. So know your learning style, and then that will help you to design activities to help you study. So we've talked about this, the audio learner, the visual learner, and the kinesthetic learner. Now, these are the main types. There are other types of learning, but these are the 3 main ones. Okay, and I have here some online quizzes to help you determine your learning style. Feel free to take a picture of these, and or you can just go on online to do a little Google search, online quizzes to help determine your learning style. And this will help you tremendously to just know how you prefer to take in information. Okay, let's read this quote together, okay? Researchers say that the unique, complex, spatial, and tactile information associated with writing by hand on physical paper is likely what leads to improved memory. Okay, that's from the University of Tokyo. So I have a bonus tip. Can you guess what it is from this quote? Yes, here it is. Writing by hand. Yes, for some reason, our brain processes information differently when we write by hand as opposed to when we're simply typing. So for important information, go ahead, get a paper and pencil and do it the old-fashioned way and simply write it down. So that is my bonus tip. Write it down. Okay, so now let's recap of the 8 tips plus the bonus tips. 1, change your activity every 20 minutes or take a break, maybe a 1-minute break after 20 minutes so that your brain can reset. 2, reward yourself for study periods. That's right. After you've studied an hour or 2 hours, give yourself a little reward. Ice cream, or listen to music, doing a little dance, getting some cookies. The list is endless, but reward yourself. Okay, 3rd, sleep on it. If you can, take a little nap within 4 hours of you doing a major study. Again, let your brain refresh itself, let it save and chunk all that information and store it up. And by all means, make sure that you get good sleep before and after and at night, at least 8 hours. Okay, and then our fourth tip to gamify memorization. So there are some things we just need to remember it, but it doesn't have to be a drudgery or boring. We can turn it into some type of game, either an online game or even create your own game and have fun with it. Even invite friends to play your game with you. 5 is to make strong connections. So when you learn new information, you want to review it often so that it gets cemented. Remember, every time you go over it, those little synapses in your brain get stronger and stronger, which makes it less likely for you to forget. 6, tie the old with the new. Yes, try to think about what your new information reminds you of, so you can help the brain make the connections. 7, record yourself. You can do this with all types of information. Any information that you want to learn, record yourself. And it's different from listening to somebody else. You want to listen to yourself and hear it. And you can do this again while you're doing other types of activities. 8, know your learning style. Okay, so you really want to know, are you a visual learner, auditory learner, kinesthetic tactile learner? Know that so that you can pick the right activities to help you learn. And a bonus tip is to write it down. Yes, write it by hand. So those are our 8 study tips plus a little bonus. So my name is Aurelia McNeil once again, and my company is thelanguageprofessor.com. And my specialties include accent and pronunciation. So I help non-native speakers speak more with a general American accent. In addition, I help with English language arts. So school-age children who would like to improve their scores and their grades, I help them with English language arts. And then for anyone who would like, who speaks English as a second language, this is my specialty and what I have my certification in. I would be more than happy to assist you. If you would like for me to help you, then visit my website, thelanguageprofessor.com, and then we can set up a 30-minute session, free 30-minute Zoom session, and we can talk about what are your goals and how I can help you. Thank you so much for viewing this presentation. I hope that you found it very helpful and at least 1 or 2 points, at least minimum, that you can use and you can apply right now to improve your study skills. Bye for now and have a great day. Bye-bye.